Chapter 12. The Women Who Remember. The Library. The soft scratching of reed against parchment filled the chamber. Asenath sat along a stone table beneath the western colonnade of the estate, the early light filtering through woven curtains. Scrolls lay half unrolled across the surface, lists of grain distribution during the famine, reports from district governors, and her careful notes in clean, practiced script. Her hand moved deliberately, notating a scroll titled, On the Preservation of Egypt in the Days of Famine. But the rhythm of her writing slowed every so often, her eyes drifting to the horizon. It had been many days, longer than expected. She wouldn't say she was afraid, but the waiting, the silence, it unsettled her. Footsteps approached, a palace guard, out of breath from the road, entered the courtyard and bowed deeply. "My lady, a message from the court," he said. "The caravan is nearing the edge of the eastern territories, 4 days' journey from home. All is well." As the guard's footsteps retreated, Asenath remained still. The silence enveloped her like a memory. The last time Joseph had left Egypt, it had been a perilous experience, both politically and personally. The weight of Pharaoh's favor didn't always shield him from jealousy or whispers. She had taken the boys and stayed in On with her brother during that time, watching the palace from afar, wondering if Joseph would return safely, or at all. Now, as she rose to gather the scrolls, her decision to visit her family again that afternoon felt like a quiet ritual of its own. A myriad of old anxieties laced with hope. An afternoon visit. That afternoon, Asenath chose simple elegance, light linen robes without adornment, and a soft veil to guard against the sun. At her quiet request that morning, a servant had arranged for her chariot to wait at the estate gate, flanked by 2 discreet guards, bearing no crest, but loyal to Joseph's house. She stepped into the chariot with practiced ease, offering a nod to the driver. The city streets were alive with motion, vendors shouting prices, children darting between carts, oxen shifting under the weight of woven goods. Her presence drew a few admiring glances, but no fanfare followed. She preferred it that way. By the time they reached her family's home in the temple's quarter, the guards had dismounted to announce her. Her father, once the high priest of On, greeted her at the threshold with his usual blend of reverence and restraint. Her mother embraced her lightly, while her cousins and aunts gathered on the shaded balcony. Pomegranate wine was poured, the scent of sweet resin and baked barley drifting through the air. Hours passed in quiet conversation, the breeze stirring robes and memory alike. Conversation turned, as it often did, to Ephraim and Manasseh. "Ephraim must be near his 22nd year," her aunt said, refilling a cup. "Surely it's time to discuss a bride." "There are well-bred girls in On," her mother added. "They know how to carry a household and stand at court, high-born, respectable." Her father nodded thoughtfully. "Sons of a vizier and a priest's daughter should have wives that reflect their rank." Asenath offered a polite smile, but didn't answer right away. After a pause, she set down her cup and rose gently to her feet. "Forgive me. I must return. I have a meeting at the estate." "Oh?" her mother asked. "Another function?" "Something quieter," Asenath said smoothly. "Joseph and I, along with Dinah, are building a small library, a private archive. We're preserving the accounts of the famine, the Hebrews' contribution to Egypt, and other records that may be helpful in the years to come." Her father's eyes narrowed with curiosity. "You're using your scribal training." Asenath nodded. "At last." There was a pause, brief but weighted. Then her father stepped closer, resting a hand lightly on her shoulder. "You always had the best hand," he said. "Even as a girl, you could balance elegance with precision. I trained many scribes, but few wrote with clarity of mind and purpose that you did." Asenath looked up at him, surprised by the softness in his voice. He added, "I had wondered if Egypt would ever see the fruit of it." Her mother smiled gently. "And now it is bearing fruit in a new way." "It is," Asenath said. "We're writing down what would otherwise be lost. The memories, the moments that aren't in ledgers or temple walls." Her mother stepped forward and took her hand. "Then it is good work, the kind that outlives empire. May the gods bless your efforts, and may your children know what you've built." Asenath bowed her head, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "That's why we do it." She offered a few more courteous goodbyes, then stepped into the sunlit courtyard, her pace steady but swift. At the gate, she nodded to the servant holding it open. Her guards, 2 men in discreet linen livery, fell into step behind her as she crossed the narrow street to the waiting chariot. With practiced grace, she climbed in and settled into the cushioned seat. The driver snapped the reins, and the horses moved forward. She allowed herself a small, silent laugh. She had escaped another round of matchmaking. And more importantly, the work waited. The truth still had to be written. Making bread. In the modest home nestled near the palace wall, laughter danced through the rooms, soft and warm as rising bread. Dinah stood at the clay counter, her sleeves rolled high, hands dusted with flour, her mind focused, not just on the task, but on the memory. Beside her, Nari and Kaya tried to mimic every move, their tiny hands clumsy but eager. A woven cloth protected the lentil pot simmering nearby, its aroma mingling with garlic, cumin, and something older, something sacred. "Not like that, Kaya," Dinah said gently, catching the girl's wrist before she pressed too hard. "You fold the edge, then turn it over. One movement, like you're wrapping a promise." Kaya giggled. Trying again, Nari stood on tiptoe to watch the edges brown. "What are you thinking about?" Nari asked. Dinah didn't answer right away. She was watching her fingers, retracing each motion as if it were a prayer. The right measure of water, the exact moment the dough softened, the sound of bubbling lentils when the fire was just right. The rhythm mattered. She was remembering not for herself, but for the scribe. Asenath had asked her to teach the archive what it meant to live as a Hebrew woman, how the hands remembered when the scrolls could not. Dinah could not write, but she could speak the past into permanence. She moved slowly now, speaking under her breath. "This was my mother's way," she murmured. "Leah said the bread should be folded once for the heart, once for the tent, and once for the road." Nari blinked. "3 folds?" Dinah nodded. "Always. One for where we are, one for where we came from, and one for where we're going." She glanced at the pot. "And the lentils for mourning, but also for healing, because life keeps moving." She didn't explain the full weight of those words. Not yet. Outside, the streets of Egypt bustled. Merchants shouting, oxen braying, the low hum of courtly life carrying on as if nothing sacred had ever passed through their borders. But inside this small kitchen, a woman once forgotten was preserving her people, not with parchment and reed, but with memory, heat, and heart. She would visit Asenath tomorrow and sit with the scribe in the quiet room beside the fountain, and she would speak these moments aloud, so they could be remembered, for the ones who would one day leave Egypt carrying more than gold. They would carry the story. They would carry faith. They would carry her. In the temple shadows. Far from the pleasant smells of Dinah's kitchen, within the deepest chamber of the temple of Amun, the air was heavy with incense and secrecy. 6 high priests stood in a perfect circle, their linen robes etched with sacred markings, their faces shadowed by the flicker of oil lamps. In the center of the floor, a basin of water reflected the flames. An obsidian knife lay beside it. The high priest, Nera, lifted both hands. His voice was low, rhythmic, ancient. We call upon Heka, god of magic. We call upon Sekhmet, the destroyer. May the path of the usurper be broken. They poured oil onto burning coals. A hiss of smoke rose. We bind his step, chanted another. Let his feet falter. Let the arrow find his back. Let the god who raised him fall silent. They circled the basin once, each dipping their fingers and drawing a mark upon the stone floor. The youngest among them spoke hesitantly. And if he returns unharmed, the high priest answered without turning, then we try again until the name of Joseph is dust. As he spoke, his hand moved instinctively to the gold amulet at his chest, an ancient symbol of Heka carved with runes no longer spoken aloud. It pulsed with a faint heat, its surface shimmering faintly in the lamplight. The water in the basin rippled, not with wind, but with force, spreading in rings that defied the stillness of the air. One priest stepped back. Nefera's voice deepened. He was raised by a god not our own. Let him fall by one he cannot name. The oil hissed, the shadows lengthened, and still they chanted.
You've been listening to the Moses Chronicles Prelude, narrated by M. McIntosh. To explore the full audiobook, purchase it in digital or printed form, or discover companion writings, visit moseschronicles.com. For more sacred fiction, subscribe and journey with us through promises, exile, and deliverance. New chapters are released weekly. Until then, may the quiet still speak.